Probably voted.
Ten.
Good
9,
evening. This
8.
is the PAC Acquisition Corporation monthly meeting. And I understand that we've been broadcast on channel 26 for those of you who are listening in. And those residents will also be able to watch it on YouTube, which will be posted after the meeting. So I'd like to move forward and just note that it's Tuesday, July the 5th at 6 p.m. And I'd like to call for approval of the final agenda.
Excuse me, can we do what we started doing a few months ago and just do a brief introduction for people who might be new? You know what I mean?
Yeah, we can. My name is Jay Shelfer, and I am the president of the PAC board. I've lived in the community for 12 years, and I am enjoying myself, and I am enjoying this PAC board. And I'd like to introduce you to John Hanson, our esteemed vice president and head of the MVest, which is, I'm sure John will explain that to you all.
Yes, MVest is the Marin Valley Emergency Safety Team. And yeah, I'll tell you more about that later. And Carol Joy Harris, our secretary.
Okay, hi, I'm the secretary. And Steve?
Hi, I'm the treasurer and chairman of the finance committee.
And Vicki is
Hi, my name is Vicki Waddell. I've lived in the park for about 15 years. My position on the board is at large. Happy to be a member. That's about it. I can't pass it to anybody else, can I?
And you're a playwright, right?
A pretend playwright. Right.
And also for Terry's benefit, I'd like to say that we have two residents on board, and that's Ellen Jane Schulz and Jessica Gabriel.
And our esteemed and very appreciated manager, Matt Greenberg, is also here with us, and I'd like to introduce him. He's been our manager for, how long is it now, Matt? 8 years, 9 years?
9 years, September 1st.
Well, there you go. Okay, and then without further ado, I'd like to call for the approval of the final agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
I'll second it.
No discussion, so I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
It's 5-0. And I'd like to move on to public comment. For those of you tuning in, if you have any issues that you'd like to raise to the PAC board or address the PAC board, you have approximately 3 minutes to make that presentation. And please go ahead. Is there anyone wanting to have anything to say this afternoon? I see Ellen has her hand raised. Ellen, go right ahead. You're muted, by the way.
Thank you. I was. Thank you. Gosh, I don't know, maybe I should bring this up with the when the minutes are approved, but I was surprised about the June 4th meeting, the draft minutes. I was told that it was only for officer installation, and I was also told it was in the fireside room. So I waited around after the meeting and the pizza after the evacuation exercise, and only one other person showed up, and then we figured you had changed it because we were told that it was in the fireside room. And then also I had asked, so this is only for the officer installation, right? But then I see in the draft minutes that you approved the minutes of, what was it, of the April meeting? So I was surprised to see that you were approving minutes for the installation of the officers. And I guess I won't hear anything because it's public comment, so you won't comment.
But I will respond that we didn't approve any minutes. If you look at the minutes for June 4th, we did not approve any minutes. Anyway, so yeah, and we can talk about that when we get there.
Okay, thank you, Ellen. Is there anyone else who would like to have
you.
or raise any issues? Seeing none, I'd like to move on to the consent calendar.
Yeah,
And-
sorry, in the minutes for 6-4, it says under C consent calendar, Jay called for approval of April 5 minutes. Carol Joy moved to accept the draft minutes as submitted. And the
No.
motion was approved.
I'm sorry, Ellen, you're looking at the June 7th meeting.
No, honey, I'm
Fourth.
looking at the annual meeting Saturday, June 4th.
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Let me just jump in to both of you. We're about to go over the June 4th meeting. And if there's any issue you want to raise, Ellen, it would be appropriate time. We haven't approved those minutes according to the consent calendar, and we're about to do it. So why don't we just move forward and ask for approval of the June 4th meeting, and any comments you might have, you may bring them up.
Okay, I would like to move to approve the minutes of the June 4th meeting.
I'll second that.
Right. Okay, any discussion from the board? Ellen, do you want to have anything to say?
Yeah, I'm not looking at the, I'm looking at the PAC draft minutes of 6-4.
Right.
And that's the minutes, the draft minutes, and it says under C1, consent calendar, Jay called for approval of the April 5th minutes. Carol Joy moved to accept the draft minutes of April 5 meeting as submitted. John seconded the motion, no discussion, and motion was approved 4-0. So it's in the minutes, it's in the draft minutes.
Right, yeah, excuse me, I was mistaken.
And I was told that that was only for installation of officers. So I'm bringing it up that I'm surprised that you approved minutes when the public wasn't involved. I mean, I would have gone to that meeting, but I thought it was in the fireside room. So I'm just bringing it up that it's like, it seems to me an irregularity, but whatever, I know you think I'm just here to make trouble, but I'm not. Thank you. So now you're going
Welcome.
to again.
Okay, so there's no further discussion. Can I call for a vote for the approval of the June 4th minutes? All in
To
favor?
approve.
Vicky?
That's right, I wasn't there, but that's fine.
Okay,
So it doesn't matter what I say. It doesn't matter. You don't address things, Jay. You don't acknowledge what I say. It's a kind of a habit. So I'm just saying so. Thank you.
thank you. Let's call for the approval of the June 7th meeting.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of the June 7 meeting.
I'll second it.
Any discussion among the board? John?
Yes, there is one thing I would like to correct in there. It's on page 3. The next to the bottom paragraph starts off with Peggy Hill. And it says Peggy Hill, longtime resident and PAC member. It's a little unclear on the tense there. There's both a past tense and a present tense that are implied there. So the past tense is the past tense is PAC member. So it should say she is a past PAC member or something to the nature, as long as a current longtime resident.
How about if it says, because PAC member isn't actually correct either. How about if it says longtime resident and past PAC board member?
Yes.
So add the
That's
word
good.
past and then the
Yeah.
word board. Okay,
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
all right.
So will you take the opportunity to pass that on, or you think it will be picked up just from these minutes?
Well, it will be in the recording, so.
That should be picked up from this, and I would say that with that correction, I would
Call for the approval.
vote for approval of the minutes.
Okay, so I amend my motion to approve the minutes with that correction.
Okay,
And then is there a second on that?
Second.
board discussion? Seeing none, any discussion from the residents? Call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to reports. Matt Greenberg, can you give us a synopsis of your maintenance and capital projects over the past month, including water usage?
Start off with the water usage. And it may be very similar or the same as last month because the last read date was May 19th. We have a total gallons per day park-wide usage of 37,857 gallons. 1 year ago at the same time period, our daily consumption was 45,205 gallons. So we're now using 7,348 gallons less than last year, which is really good. Contributed to, I feel, the leaks that we've repaired, residents being more cognizant about micro irrigation, and the continued discussion about conservation.
Matt, it's come up from time to time about perhaps metering the water usage, and it has a double-edged sword, so to speak. In one sense, it'll alleviate the park budget from having to pay for water usage of the residents, and the residents then would be responsible for paying for their own water usage. Now, basically, it all will flow back to rent because we have to raise rents when our expenses under the operation of the park become higher and higher, and we need to find additional revenue to keep the financial picture viable. And if we charge back the residents for their actual water usage, we would encourage people to be more cognizant of the amount of water they're actually using and probably prevent people who are abusing that at the current time and using too much water or wasting it. And it all flows back because if we can show that people will pay for the actual usage, it would reduce the amount of money that the park has to pay for water consumption that are then donated to the residents. And therefore, we in fact would probably be able to hold off any rent increases if we actually force back the use of water back to the residents. Do you have any comment about that?
Currently, the park, the cost for water usage per year is a little over 100,000. Clubhouse, pool water evaporation, showers, bathroom use is probably contributes to about 15% of that. So if we did install meters on resident homes and charge for metered use, the payback would probably be a little less than 3 years for the cost to install those meters. And it would also create a little bit of an easier job determining where leaks are. Right now, there are 9 main water meters in the park, and each meter is different in regards to the amount of homes that are serviced by that meter. So yes, it would help the park financially. It would help create a better tool to locate leaks. But it's something that needs more discussion. It's about, a $250,000 cost to install meters throughout the park. So we'd have to create a capital improvement line item for that moving forward. I think it would probably require several more discussions and get more into detail. And also get several more bids from outside companies. But I think that they would be very similar to what we have or what I've attained so far.
Any comment from the board?
I like it because it creates the water expense to be more equitable amongst the high users and low users. Now we're all sharing it equally. It's okay, but it's really not accurate or fair.
I agree with that.
Yes, it sounds like a good idea to me, but I agree with Matt that it needs more research and discussion. It's expensive, so of course we'd have to get the money.
Yeah, Vicky?
I like the idea because I happen to live at the end of Sunrise and there are people in our area that I just see their water running down the street. So I'm either going over there and turning it off or calling them and reminding them to turn it off, so maybe if they got hit with the bill directly, they might pay attention more to their
That's
usage.
quite a reminder.
Yeah.
It's better than my reminder.
Yeah, and as Steve points out, it's more equitable. In other words,
Yes.
right now, everybody is sharing that cost. And some people are taking advantage of it. I mean, some people use very little water. Other people are having hot tubs and maybe they feel they should change out their water every month or every week or every other day, simply because it doesn't cost them anything. And it's a big waste in some respect. And right now in a drought and going forward, it's only going to get worse. Maybe we should pay more attention to this. And Anila, oh wait, hold on, John, let's hear from the board first, Anila. We'll get right back to you. John Hanson.
Well, it's a learning experience on using water, and it's going to become more acute as time goes on. We're certainly in a phase in our climatology of aridification, and that is just going to make water that much more difficult to get, that much more expensive. And it's about time, I think, that each of us takes responsibility for the water that we use.
Anila.
Considering that there's a lot of leaks in the system right now, how in the world are we going to decide, is it fair to ask a person who comes in and buys a home to buy into this leaky system? How is that all working?
Well,
And I think it's a great idea.
I'll speak for Matt. I mean, the idea is that you put a meter on the water going into the home, then presumably there's no leaks in the home itself. And it would be very obvious if you had a leak from a pipe in your house, because you would obviously be able to recognize it fairly easily. The leaks in the system are underground before they get to the homes.
Right. So I know Matt's working very hard on plugging all the leaks in the system. How's
Right.
that going?
Matt?
When we see water that is above ground, we take steps to locate, typically if it's an irrigation use or if it's a leak. But it's an ongoing task. I think that we've actually stopped most of them. Most of the gutters around the park are dry right now. A lot of them are resident irrigation leaks, but some are below ground, and some of them have been leaking for so long that they've created paths for the water that you don't see above ground. And we stumble upon them, or a resident will notice a damp area that we can, get a utility location specialist out to see if there's a spring or if there is a leak. So it's not an everyday task. It's more when we're doing work around resident homes, or if somebody tells us that they see water in any particular place.
Matt, in that regard, if their irrigation system is leaking, it's really going to be after the meter. In other words, most of the takeoff for the water is after the intake to the homes. So if people had abnormal water usage, they would be able then to determine whether it was their irrigation system that's causing the problem. And they would have to take responsibility for it or ask you for help one way or
Or their
another.
shower or bathtub, yeah.
You're correct. Yeah, the irrigation is after the residence meter, so they would be able to determine their use, and every resident would cut down on use as soon as they start paying for the water.
It's noticeable. His mic or
We can hear you, Irma.
Did you have a comment, Irma?
I was just sending a private message to Steve that we can hear his mic.
I have a comment.
Go right ahead.
Is the installation of the meters going to be a considerable expense? And will the maintenance staff have to do extra work to read the meters and record them all for billing?
Mentioned that it would cost about $250,000 for labor and materials to install the meters. And yes, as the gas and electric meters are read, then the water meter would be read, and it would be calculated into resident monthly invoices as a separate line item.
Thank you.
John, the comment I had before is that right now you're paying for that water usage without actually having it directly attributed to you. Everyone is paying for it out of the operating budget of the park. So some people apparently are perhaps taking more advantage of it and wanting to draw their attention to their own water usage going forward. It only seems fair that everyone pay for their use of this utility rather than, in some cases, like in the electric, there were cases in the past where people attached utilities before the meter. So since the park actually pays for all the electricity that's going through the main gateway at the top of the hill, we all were paying for those people who were supposedly cheating on their electric use. So in the same regard, making sure that everyone pays for the amount of utilities that they use seems only fair. That's why I think we're investigating this.
I understand all that. I got that from your previous comments. My concern is that it's going to be a very large outlay to start with, and then we're still going to be paying, all of us, for the leakages which have not yet been identified and fixed. That's all.
Well, the park is.
Yeah, well,
You only pay for your metered use. The leakage, if it's at your home after your meter, you'll pay for it. If it's prior to the meter in the system, it doesn't show up on your use.
I understand that. It's just the stuff that doesn't show up on the meters, we'll be paying for anyhow.
Right, but it'll pinpoint where those leaks are, John. In other words, we would be able to find more succinctly where leaks are, and it'll give us another tool to be able to stop them.
I don't understand that, but that's fine.
Well, just briefly, in other words, if the line coming to your house is leaking, right now there's no way of determining that. if each house is metered, there are 6 different general meters that show the amount of water passing to that bunch of houses. And if you deduct the usage from the houses and you see a large amount of water that's not being metered, then the assumption is that there's a leak in that particular area. And then Matt can send somebody to investigate exactly where that leak is and stop it. Any other comments?
There's a
I had
question
a
from Bill
follow-up.
Davis
Okay.
Bill Davis.
in
Oh, sorry.
the chat. I'll read that. It says, if watching for water leaks like running down the street, then a notice of the overflowing could easily be noticed to the resident to manage. Yes or no?
Always. We
Yeah.
always notice the resident, and we generally help them find the leak if it's an irrigation leak.
Okay, Matt, do you want to continue on with
Sure.
your report?
So we're on week 6 of our hand crews doing fire abatement work with the weed eaters.
Yeah, I
and
have,
chain-
my hand's been up. I have comments about the water usage. Is it, so I don't get to talk about that? I wait to the end of Matt's comments?
No, go ahead. We'll jump in. Go ahead, Ellen.
Thank you. Yeah, we're seem to be very focused about the water usage. And I want to say that I've been here 19 years and watched that drain at 115 Marin Valley in front of Polly's house. And over the years, I bring it up. So I am so gratified that after 19 years of watching that water come out of that hill, that you've dried it up, Matt, that you found it, and like, oh my God. And also in front of Gloria Gilbert's house, that was a couple of years, that would be on and off. You took care of that. So hallelujah, thank you very much. And as far as people were asking about, yeah, that's another thing that I, as a very low water usage, my energy use is, you know, I'm a saint, whatever. But there is an issue with individual water meters because, as I said, I've been here 19 years. And when I moved here, the next door resident said, this hose bib, there's two connections. One is yours and one is mine. And I understand now that my neighbor is making something because Mark was here to take pictures, Matt, and there's some dispute about the property line and that's their water. And so that would be another issue that somebody saying, oh, well, whose water is that? If we put in individual meters, which I am all for individual meters because people waste water like crazy. So that's my comment. And this is Ellen Jane for the secretary. And another thing about conservation is we don't really address, I don't hear a lot of, and about reading the water meters, wouldn't they be putting in smart meters that they read individually in the office, in the North Marin Water District? They'd probably be putting in smart meters. Is that not true? And they don't have to read those individually.
We're still a sub-metered community. It wouldn't be an account through North Marin Water. It would be an account through Marin Valley. So we would not be.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Matt, I didn't hear your last word. It would be not through North Marin Water, but through.
Marin Valley.
Oh,
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. And then the other part of that is about PG&E, where, you know, again, my climate crisis whole thing. I'm not sure whether you give the gas and electric usage that we pay for through the clubhouse, and is that kind of extraordinary numbers? I mean, it probably is with the pool and the hot tub and everything, but I have a suggestion, and I'm not out to vilify anybody, but PG&E guidelines for climate consciousness and saving money are to set air conditioners at 78 degrees, which even kind of shocks me. I don't have air, so it's moot. But I often come into the clubhouse. I don't come every day because it's a little trek for me. And it'll be 9 o'clock at night and the air conditioning is set at 63 degrees. And it'll be cool outside, nobody's around, and it doesn't seem to be monitored. So whether you're going to put in control, because when I'm there, I turn it off. And the same thing with the ballroom, that they'll run all night, the air conditioning with no one there. And I was there one evening when the security person came through and I said, oh, did you take care of the running AC in the ballroom? And he said, no, ma'am, that's not on our checklist. So who shuts it down when I'm not there at night?
Matt, you want to address any of that?
That's not really on my maintenance and capital list, and no, I don't really want to address it.
Okay, thank you, Ellen. Any other
Hey, well, who do
comments?
I address that to? Who do I bring that up with then?
You've brought it up to me many times, Ellen. You can bring it up again if you want, but not during my maintenance and capital report. You started on water, you ended up with air conditioning.
Matt, you want to continue your report?
Please. We're on week 6 of fire abatement. We've had, depending on the day, up to 7 guys working at a time, doing weed eater work, chainsaw work in the perimeter of the park. We've got about 100 feet of defensible space this year. As you remember, we had the goats come in first, and the guys will be completed at the end of this week. I started Wilhelm Tree Service on phase 1 of 100 feet defensible space for all down limbs, all poison oak, all the limbs of healthy trees lifted to 13 feet above grade. And they are starting at lower club view. If we can, after the defensible space fire abatement line item is paid for the guys that are doing the weed eater work. If we have enough, then we're going to do a phase 2 with Wilhelm. That's going to be on the north side of View Ridge and above Marin Valley Drive. There's a number of trees that have limbs that have fallen, have caused some damage to the older retaining walls that are there, the steel I-beam walls with the big lag boards. There's a number of them that are broken, and it's very steep below resident homes. It's a lot of ladder fuel there that could run up the hill to resident homes. So that's my next target if we have enough money left over. At the same time, right now I have Marin Tree Service they're on their second day of interior tree pruning for resident safety, limbs on roofs, trees that are overgrown that are surrounding homes. That sort of yearly maintenance that we do. And we are doing our ongoing sewer maintenance as well, which is ongoing all the time, or quarterly maintenance in different areas of the park. I want to move on to last month we had a day with 10 hours with no power. That was tough on a lot of people, but it was really important. I had all the transformers cleaned and maintained. I wanted to get oil samples from all the different transformers and get them tested in a lab, the gas chromatograph, to determine the amounts, parts per million of acetylene gas, which is most important. The reports for each of the transformers show how much hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, methane, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, ethane, ethylene, and acetylene that's in the mineral oil content, which is there to monitor any call outs for them. We have 2 warning call outs, and we actually have 8 critical call outs, which are the call outs are generally for higher acetylene gas located in the oil. And it is to determine the shelf life of the transformers and the speed at which these different gases are building in the oil. We also have had some problems with the main switch, which is a 12,000 volt switch at the beginning of the park. I'm still in the middle of studying the park's options, but just to let you know that I've started the process to set up and reserve a 2,000 kilovolt transformer power generator that would power up the entire park in case something breaks. And it's pretty costly, but I feel that it is warranted. If there's a brownout or something in Lucas Valley that creates the power at Marin Valley to drop and then turn back on, we could have an accident or a failure. One of these days, you've all experienced the 105-degree days that we recently had. Be very uncomfortable for a lot of the residents, for all residents, but a lot of them in particular that may have health concerns to be in that sort of heat. The clubhouse would be cool, but it's a lot of people to get into the clubhouse. So I've been talking about this with the project planning committee, which is John and Jay. And there needs to be some more discussions, but right now I'm on the path to spend some money to reserve access to the generator and crew in case something happens within the park this summer that prevents PG&E from restoring power within 12 hours, which would be outside of the park to the main switch.
Can I ask you a question about
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
before you continue? Thank you. That the money for that, the reserving part of it that you just talked about, that was in the budget, right?
Yes, line item 32.
Yeah.
I asked for 300,000 this year specifically to do some studies. It's well warranted. The shelf life of the direct burial wire in the park is 50 years. It's 50 years old and it's aluminum. So there's going to need to be some work done within this next year. That's work that'll remain for a long period of time that'll help protect failures in the park.
Yeah, I just
that
kind of,
equipment is just old.
I just kind of wanted to get that on the record, that's something that was already budgeted. And yeah, thank you.
Another caveat, Matt, is the fact that if there is a failure of one of the transformers, not only people will not have air conditioning, but they won't be able to keep their food cold in their refrigerator. And if someone is suddenly faced with not being able to store food and perhaps not even be able to prepare food, it's going to be a problem. So anything we can do to guarantee and assess the necessity of providing a guarantee of service, I think it's worthwhile. And I look forward to your further reports. John Hanson.
Yes, I just knowing that, we have aluminum aluminum wire underground that is 50 years old. And just with my experience with aluminum wiring is that, we're walking on eggs right now with our electrical infrastructure. One thing that would help tremendously and something that I intend to express in the echo, and it would be nice if people actually read it and understood, is that when the power goes out, as it is likely to sometime this summer, turn things off. Because if the AC is running, if everything is going as it was when the power went out and the power comes back on, every motor that's involved has an initial surge that's roughly twice what it takes to run the motor. So if someone's using, 1,500 watts to run a small AC, it takes 3,000 watts to turn it back on. So the more of those that are running, the greater the chance of having a catastrophic failure of our infrastructure system. So at this point, I think it's necessary for everybody in the park to understand that when the power goes out, turn everything off in the house, turn everything off until the power comes back on, turn things back on incrementally. I don't know how to get that information out to everybody, but I would say at this point, that information is critical.
Any other comments? Yes,
That was
Vicki.
That was another reason that Bill Crozer lost his home, because when he got home from vacation, he turned everything on all at one time. So I totally agree with what John is saying.
I think just continuing on, I think these kinds of discussions are important for the board to understand and to investigate, because we are in charge and we're in contract to actually help direct the budget and to help management, in this case, predominantly Matt, really make sure that we get ahead of these problems. Now, the problem facing us is that we know, because of the age of the infrastructure, that things have to be amended and changed out. The PUC promising to renew the infrastructure is many years out, and we have no idea even if it's going to happen. We've been told that it will, but the best information that Matt has indicated in the past is that it may not happen for 5 or 6 years. So if we have this aged infrastructure that is, compromised by the fact that it was installed 50 years ago at a time when the electrical consumption was probably between a third and a half of what it is now, with that increased load coming in and with that aging infrastructure and aging transformers, we really have to pay attention to this. And I really appreciate Matt taking the initiative to really investigate and get this stuff to a point where we can stopgap some of the problems that may occur, because no one wants to see an area of the park or a whole part of the park shut down for any length of time for senior citizens. The PAC board has already taken the initiative to make sure that there is a safety zone at the clubhouse. And I think that is a big help. But these are things that the PAC board should really investigate and be cognizant of going forward. John Hanson.
Yeah, Jay, I would add to that it's really important, just as important, I feel, that we let the city know of the urgency of this matter. And also PG&E for the, to move us from our tier 2 to a tier 1 and get our infrastructure replaced. It's way past time to do that, and we should never been put into tier 2.
John, I appreciate your comments, and I think Matt is in the process of exactly that, keeping the city informed and doing whatever, not under the table, but whatever possible avenues he has to feed information into the PUC that this could be a catastrophic problem going forward unless it's addressed. Do you agree with that, Matt?
I do. I still think we're pretty much in front of it right now. I have provided all the details, more than I've given to you, to the city. It's a lot. It's a lot to take in. I mean, we have our pre-construction meeting on Thursday, it might be tomorrow actually, for the Pump House 1 replacement, which has been a lot of planning and a lot of work behind the scenes. So this all was a lot of extra angst, but the city was more than willing to make an emergency adjustment to the budget before it was adopted. But I showed them that what we had already discussed and had been approved is enough to get this going. My plans initially are to, we're hiring an electrical engineer who's going to draft a plan to replace the main switch at the beginning of the park. It may take relocating it or possibly cutting the hillside back and building a large retaining wall to create a mechanical area. But the new equipment is much larger and the setback requirements are much different. They won't let you put that sort of equipment as close to resident homes for ease of working on them and for considerations to the people that are living there. So there's a lot of planning and discussion that needs to go into this. It's going to be kind of fast tracked. I think the city is going to just let me get it done. So I've already started it. I've got a really good company working on it. And I feel confident that we'll be able to get it done before there's a real problem in the park. But like I mentioned, I'm setting up a resolve in case that we do have a problem, so that, you know, it could be probably the least amount of time, if everything failed, would be a 9-hour gap that it would take to set up temporary power. It's quite expensive, but you know, that comes along with owning a mobile home park, that you don't have individual accounts with PG&E. You have to provide this sort of power. And, you know, maybe the insurance would kick in at some point in time. I have no faith that the CPUC is going to move very quickly on the infrastructure, and I don't feel like it's worth waiting on. As you well know, my application was approved and accepted, but they have a 6-year wait before they can even look at it.
Oh,
Yeah, so it's something that needs to move forward. And as soon as I got that information is when I started all this. I don't think the transformers in the park have ever been tested. They're required to be tested every year, some every 3 years. And some of them are quite low on mineral oil. There was 2 of them that were over 6 gallons low. Number of them had no ground wires hooked up. We replaced all the bolts and acorns inside of these transformers, cleaned them all. They're all working as they should, but like I said, there's 8 of them that have critical issues that need retesting. But I'm vacillating back and forth whether it's worth retesting them, because the shutdown of the main switch could break. There's some broken porcelain in it. So there's a lot of information I'm kind of putting in your lap, but I think we're still in pretty good shape. Everything's working okay right now.
Thank
Unless
you,
there's
Matt.
any more questions, that's really the end of my report. There's a lot of little stuff that we do all the time that I don't think is worth really bringing up right now.
John Phil, did you have a question?
That's a big no.
No.
Any other questions from the board or from residents? Okay, so I'd like to move on to Steve Plosher and the PAC Treasurer's Report.
Okay, I'll make this quick because there's not a lot of change. Our petty cash account is still the same balance as before, $2,625. Separately, of our PAC annual budget of $4,000, we have spent $2,625. So, you know, it was a light year. We didn't have an election, didn't have a lot of expenses. Now for the finances, we're in good shape. Our DSCR is 2.05 through the end of May. And it'll probably be a little better to the end of June. So it's still relevant because, as you may be aware, the city is pondering and hoping to pay off the loan with some of our reserve funds, in which case the DSCR would not be an issue anymore. But before doing that, they want to get a report from a reserve specialist to make sure that we have enough reserves on hand if we do pay off the debt, that afterwards there would still be adequate reserves for, a park of our nature. So that probably won't be done until sometime later this year. So paying off the debt isn't going to happen right away. So we still are careful of the DSCR. That's the end of my report. Any questions?
Thank you, Steve.
Steve, do you know if they have actually hired someone? A reserve specialist?
Okay.
Yes, they have. I can answer that.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from the PAC board on Steve's report? Any questions from residents? Okay, let's move on to the 2x2 meeting that Carol Joy and myself attended last month. And basically, those 2x2 meetings are an opportunity for the park, represented by ourselves, by Carol Joy and myself and Matt, to have a frank, open discussion with the city. And I think one of the things that we have made some progress on is on the rules and regs, which I'll ask Carol Joy to comment on, but also the fact that there has been some movement to analyze and perhaps move the enforcement of the rules and regs into the Helsing group, into the legal services of the Helsing group, which will make it a lot easier for Matt to officiate over the new rules and regs. And with that, I'll pass it on to Carol for a sec to talk about the rules and regs and what progress are being made.
Okay, and you meant to say Carol Joy, right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, well, we got some kind of bad news, and that is that Kate Wan, well, I feel it's bad news, who is our liaison, she is our point person with the city, is retiring. I mean, it's nice for her. And that's happening next month. The good news is that she has committed to getting the rules and regulations off her desk by the time she leaves. And it's looking like what that means is that is going to go to legal counsel for the city. If that's true, if that happens, that's good, because we've been waiting for that for a long time. We don't need to know, or we don't know any more details about how that's going to be handled after that, but they know that we're way in arrears with needing updated rules and regulations. So hopefully this is not such bad news after all, and maybe whoever replaces Kate Wan will make this a priority. We'll see. That's all I really have to say about it. Did you want to add anything, Jay or Matt?
Well, the only thing to add is that the rules and regs are going to be reviewed by the city council. And then if it goes through, which it should, to the Helsing group actually administering the rules and regs, which are apparently in the contract between the PAC board and the city. The managerial agreement states specifically that the management can officiate over those rules. I think the fact that Kate is bringing these facts forward and to legal counsel and having them review the rules to see which may impact on the city, where their liability would require them to want to put input into any decisions on the rules and regs. I think we'll get some more information and some feedback as to how the Helsing Group can actually officiate and maybe move forward on that, which would be a big step in making sure that people live in harmony with one another and observe the rules and regs here.
Right, and that's the whole sticking point, and it has been for 5 years that we've been waiting for these rules and regs to be approved by the city. So yes, we're just waiting, but I think there's movement. So we've been told.
Right.
I mean, I hate to be cynical. We've been told before that there was going to be movement, but anyway.
That's right.
We'll see.
This time it's going to happen.
Oh, yeah. Okay, good.
Okay, and the other thing is that, as Matt pointed out earlier in the meeting, that the Station 1 should take off sometime this month, in the latter part of this month. And if Matt's having a meeting this week about it, there's a good chance that work will actually commence on that, and that's obviously a good thing. The other thing that we did talk about, and Steve mentioned it as well in his report, is that they have contracted with an outside source to look at how much reserves based on the infrastructure and the requirements of running the park actually are, so that with that report later this year, they'll be able to move forward with the retiring of the debt with the Bank of Marin, if it fits into those kind of parameters, where we would still have enough reserve to cover any eventuality, and at the same time alleviate the amount of money that we have to pay for maintaining that debt with the bank. So it looks all good news. So I can't think of anything else I'd like to add. Matt or Carol Joy, do you have anything else that came up in that meeting that we can pass on?
No.
I don't, but I do have a meeting coming up with Chris and with Kate separately to polish up the details with all this and try to move it forward.
Good, thank you. Okay, any questions from the board about the 2x2 meeting? Residents.
Wait.
Yeah, oh, John, I'm sorry.
Yeah, actually, I do have one question. I'm still actually quite interested in the right of way on the emergency evacuation route off of Meadowview. The main reason there, I think, is that since we're doing clearing work, I mean, one reason we couldn't use that when we did have a fire a few years ago was that the fire came right up to the road, which means that we need to, as evacuation route, if that's going to be an official route, we need to have the clearance authority to clear that area as well near that road so that we can use it if we need to.
Right, John, and I'm sorry, I missed, I didn't report on it. We did bring that up at the 2x2, and again, they said that they were going to look at the deeds to see what the actual legality of using it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's what I want to know. And if they can't do it, we could probably just get a real estate, what's it called,
Title search.
a title. Yeah, we can get a title company to look at it, probably for far less and a lot easier and a lot quicker than the city. So Yeah, I don't know. It just, I think we need to move forward on it.
Okay, I'll make a note and I'll talk to Kate before she leaves to see
Great.
if progress is being made on that. Okay, having no questions, most of what project planning that we talk about between John and myself, John Hanson and myself and Matt, I think have been covered. Can you think of anything else, John?
No, not really. I think it's well aired what we've been working on, and I really feel that what we have been working on really requires our focus. So I don't see really any further work that I would like to put my attention on until we get some resolutions and get things moving on what we've discussed already.
Oh, okay, any other input on project planning? Seeing none, let's move on to MVES, and again, John Hanson.
Well, thanks, Jay. You know, MVES started in its recent configuration back in 2014. That was about 8 years ago. And since that time, we've had a couple of home fires. We've had a wildfire very near the park we just alluded to. We've had a few instances, and we'll probably have many more of dense smoke that can be a hazard and danger to people. We're still kind of waiting maybe for the earthquake that may come in the next 30 years, always sometime in the next 30 years, but it's not something to, you know, put out of our vision. We're just talking about power outages and the effect that they may have. And we've had some, we're definitely going to have some more. We've had high wind events, and we've been dealing with a pandemic now for a couple of years. We have had high heat events, and we've addressed that to some extent in MVES. And winter storms, there's always medical emergencies occur in the park, and we've had occasions of you know, crime sprees going on here. So MVES to one level or another, to one extent or another, has been busy for these last 8 years, addressing these to the best we can. So, but with that, what we have found is that things have changed. You know, a lot of things have changed in the last 8 years. We've had major disruptions in our politics and our social status with climate change, with all of the various implications of that, with the mega wildfires, with the drought, and anyway, the list goes on. So because of that, MVES is taking a step back right now. We're still trying to keep things moving with respect to the of all of the issues that we're trying to address, but we're also stepping back to take a look at where we're going and how we're going. There's a change in direction. The wind has shifted, and MVES is trying to readjust our sails to catch the best breeze going forward. Rough analogy there, but anyways, that is what we're doing, and that's what's happening at MVES right now. And then also with regard to MVES volunteers, every volunteer comes into MVES with their own personal what's the term? Pretty much what they have in mind doing and how long they intend to stay, and perhaps when they wish to leave. So so people tend to come and go in MVES, and you know, we're always excited to have new volunteers, and we're always sad to leave to see other volunteers that have been with us for a long time leave. And one in particular right now that we're very concerned about really is Carol Joy is going to be leaving MVest, and she leaves a huge hole there to be filled. How we're going to do that, I don't know. She was an integral member of MVest, but you know, like I said, everybody has their tenure, and what you know, when they start and when they need to leave. So Carol Joy has found hers, and we are very grateful for her having been with us for all the time and all of the efforts she has put in. And hopefully we can find somebody to fill those shoes.
Thank you.
And that's
Okay,
my
thank you,
report.
John. Thank you, John. Any questions? Nancy Bigham, if there's no question from the board.
Oh, it's a thumbs up. It's not a hand raise.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, so let's move on to HOL. John Feld.
Hi, everyone. HOL, as you probably know, has its monthly meeting tomorrow, and we welcome everybody to come to it. There's a couple of issues that are going on in HOL which are worth mentioning. First of all, the financial abuse of elders, which is coming up on the 11th.
No, 15.
On the 15th, I'm sorry,
Friday.
at 11 a.m. It's really important, and we're going to try our best to get everybody to attend this meeting, including caregivers and relatives or whoever is here and involved with residents. It's an ongoing issue, and I think we're going to have a lot really good information from that meeting. And we'd really like, Matt, if you're possible, to be at that meeting, but we will probably we're going to try and videotape it, and we will put it on the website afterwards. Next, we have a resignation from our board. Kamala Allen has resigned. She was our secretary, and we had just made a space on the board to get a new member, but that new member is Anne Lakota, and she's actually taking over the secretary's job and is going to be on the board from now on, and hopefully we've got a new member starting maybe tomorrow. MVest and HOL are working together now to work on defensible space. Thanks to John Hansen's wonderful suggestion that HOL actually has some possible role to play in helping maintain defensible space, to a large part with the assistance of Peggy Hill, who has taken over the yard maintenance group. And the yard maintenance group is running out of money. PAC gave us a lot of money, and we spent it cleaning up yards, and we're asking for more donations. I've already done that in the HOL letter, and we didn't receive any yet, but we're hoping that we will. It's a critical thing for us to do whatever we can to help invest and management to make this park safer with landscape removal and care. Talking about money, Invest is going to suggest a donation increase of $5 a year. It's gone from 20. We're going to put it up to 25. And there are many people who give us $100, but of course many more don't give us anything. So
That's HOL, John.
I'm sorry. Did
Yes,
I say?
that-
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
HOL. I wear too many hats in this community.
No, you don't. No, just enough.
Thank you.
More.
We've had a lot of questions about the key cards in the pool, and the fact that people reach over the gate to unlock it, and They even drag chairs over there so they can stand on the chair to
Ah.
reach over the gate to it. So the sooner the cards happen, as far as we're concerned, the better. And I think that's it. Financial abuse is our big thing this month.
Okay, thank you, John.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Again, is there anyone to report on Marvell?
Yes.
Thank you,
Actually,
Vic.
I have a report from both the coming in president and the going out president, so I merged the information. At Marvell's general meeting on June 8th, Carolyn Corey was voted president and Susan Hoff and Connie Marilich were voted reservationist and secretary respectively. Kathleen Dargy's appreciation celebration is going to be on July 15th at Pub. There will be a pasta dinner at Pub on Friday, July 22nd. The cost is $10 per person and reservations are required. Marvell continues to require that all residents and guests attending our functions show proof of full COVID vaccination and booster. And finally, further information regarding upcoming events are available in the Echo or in the clubhouse.
Okay, thank you, Vic. Any questions about this? Yes, go ahead.
Those events are also listed on the website.
Okay, so before we move forward, Ellen had a comment asking about if in the chat, if transformers are in such bad shape, isn't it all the more reason to be conservative with our electric and gas use? And the answer to that is yes. Okay, so moving on, old business, there is none. New business, there is none. And the determination of the next board meeting will be on Tuesday, August the 2nd, if we're all in accord with that. Is everyone in accord with that?
Yes, and I would just like to say that we have decided to keep doing our meetings on Zoom for the time being for two reasons. One, that they can then also be broadcast at the same time on channel 26 for those people who don't or can't Zoom and who would not be able to attend live were we to meet live. And the second reason is the big C in the room, COVID, that is still a problem. So for the time being, we've decided to keep meeting via Zoom.
Exactly. And with that, I'd like to call for adjournment. And thank you all for being here with us. Good
Thank
night,
you.
one and all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good trip, Steve.
Have fun.